This has been a really heavy week. It's been a heavy week in the United States, just with everything going on. It's been a heavy week in Baldoni Lively. It has a lot of emotions for people in it. It's been a heavy week if you care about the fate of Karen Reed. And for what it's worth, it's been a heavy week for me personally, not because anything tragic is going on in my life. My problems are mostly first world problems. But being a lawyer, especially a lawyer who works with people and their jobs and their, discrimination cases and whistleblower cases and stuff like that, this is a really strange time to do that. And I find myself often feeling like I wish I could do more. I wish I could help, but these areas are not my areas of expertise. I can't get on here and opine about the best way to handle a lot of the things that are coming up for folks. And so sometimes I take it personally that I can't do more because I want to be able to use my education and my experience for more good. And sometimes it's just hard to see that the individual things you're doing every day really matter. But I had a lot of long talks with myself this weekend inside Monoghan, and I really thought about just not doing this anymore. Like, what's the point? If I'm gonna get on here and do, videos every day about this is how this process works and this is what the standard is and this is how these things go, and people are just gonna get on here and be like, yeah, the judge is biased. Like, what am I doing here? And I'm frustrated by that. I'm frustrated with anybody who just isn't interested in understanding the issue, because it's easier just to point the finger. Even sometimes the finger deserves to be pointed, but you still have to try to understand why. And it can't just be that everybody who does something you don't like is like a bad, evil person. The internet is a really strange place. And I think I've said to you guys before, I never did anything on the internet before I started posting on TikTok. I never had a Facebook page. The only Instagram page I've ever had was private, so nobody saw it but my friends and family. It's just not something that I did. And part of the reason for that is I didn't want to be in the midst of sort of this free-for-all of people having discussions, many of whom had absolutely no fucking idea what they were talking about, and many of whom, frankly, were ill-intended. And I've really been thinking a lot about what does this do for me? What does it do for others? Is it worth it? In terms of what does it do for me, it is a really good outlet for me at a time when I kind of need one. I'm at that point in my career after practicing for 25 years where you want to start, I do mentor people every day, but you want to start doing more of that. So I think that's what's in it for me. But I also had to have this conversation with myself about, I'm not a people pleaser. Well, at least I'm not anymore. I was for a while. I was raised by a woman from Mississippi, remember? But I do crave feeling useful to people. The validation I seek is, am I being useful? Is something I can say to you useful to you? Is something I can do useful to you? And so I keep coming back to, am I being useful to people, right? And this is not for you guys to get in the comments and be like, you're so useful, you're so useful. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm just saying that I have to put that into the blender. Yes, I do have a need, a personal need to feel useful to people, and that this gratifies me in that way. But I also had to be honest with myself that I think part of the reason I'm drawn to this and I keep doing it is because I have always been, the way that I consume information is changing too. Like, in the past, I think I was kind of snooty about like, well, what do people on the internet know? Watch the news. And now it's like, I don't even watch the news. And, I'm not going to take my news of the world from any, Joe off the street. But the fact is that, if you want clean information without some sort of commercial for-profit spin on it, the only place you're going to get it is the internet. And a lot of what I'm trying to figure out is, am I adding to a situation that's making something worse, or am I adding to a situation that's making something better? Because I do think that experts exist. I do think there's expertise. I do think there's people who have journalism degrees and people who are specialists in various kinds of areas. And as someone who considers themselves an expert on some stuff, I like to listen to other experts. I'm not just going to listen to anybody with a microphone. So I believe that expertise should be respected. But the way that information is being democratized, it's like, how do you now, like, what's the rubric for figuring out what information is worth listening to and what information is not worth listening to? It's now no longer, does it come from something that is regulated by the FCC, right? Did they call themselves a journalist? Like, how do you figure out the boxes of what you do and don't believe? So all of that to say that where I have ended up, at least for now, is that I have an ability, whether it's innate or I learned it or both, to explain complicated things to people in simple terms in a relatively short amount of time. I'm not afraid to say it's a skill I have. I'm good at it. I'm real good at it. And if my ability to do that can be helpful to people understanding things that are going on in the world, then that's useful. And that's something that is consistent with how I feel information should be shared, revealed, and understood in 2025. And, I've accepted long ago that there's always going to be people who think that you're biased in one direction or another. And that's fine. We all see things through our own lenses. I think probably my biggest bias in the world is my privilege, frankly. I am well aware that I see the world completely differently from other people because I have money. There isn't any bigger bias because most problems I can't identify with because I've never had them. And that's okay. And even like the snarky shit about like saying stuff about my appearance, whatever. I was in a sorority. That doesn't scare me. But I think what I learned through this week is, number one, I need to set my boundaries where I set my boundaries. And, I did that with the judge thing. And if people want that content, they're just going to have to go somewhere else. Sorry, I'm not going to do it. But I also learned that I can do a better job setting up this is how these decisions go rather than reacting, to the extent that I'm able to do that. Because a lot of, I've been thinking for weeks, like, should I set up like how do motions to dismiss work and what is the standard and what is the judge looking at? And then I just never got around to it. And then boom, they all came out at once. And I don't know whether it would have mattered to the people who are absolutely focused on and committed to misunderstanding. But I think I'm going to do some things, go back to some basics a little bit as I think tomorrow I might do kind of a little reset on discovery and how all that works, just to set the stage so that I'm not constantly in reactive mode. But anyway, for now, I'm going to focus. I'm going to do some more stuff on 23andMe tomorrow. That is becoming a really, really, really big deal. I was having dinner with these friends last night and they were like, we gave them our data and we have no fucking idea what's going on. And like, they just happened to be lucky enough to be having dinner with me who had read it all. So I think I'm going to do some of that stuff tomorrow too, because I find that incredibly important. And then I'm just going to see where we go from here.